thanks for joining episode 7 of Xactly's Payday Playbook Podcast series. Today's episode is all about territory babysitting and what happens when you have rep churn or reorgs. So, Jason, tell me about the term babysitting. Is that an industry term?
No, it's something I use. It's just really descriptive when you have open territories, when you don't have account coverage. So how are you handling things like an open territory or due to a rep churn? It's I just use the term babysitting.
Got it. Makes sense. So, first question that comes to mind, right?
Mhm.
Like, what causes this to happen?
Yeah, the obvious one is rep churn, but there are other things that can cause it. Uh, I I see companies that do pretty frequent rebalancing of territories where we added a bunch of new clients or we lost a bunch, um, and we want to equalize uh, uh, workflow or we want to equalize productivity, so we'll rebalance, and you'll have the odd territory that's now doesn't have anyone or it has to be split or something. Um, you can have market disruption. I saw a lot of this I mentioned I saw it. We all saw it during COVID. Um, you have another one during when you have a high cost of coverage. When you have, let's say, a rep who's covering part of the Midwest and North Dakota. Okay, covering North Dakota probably is going to have uh, a different cost of coverage because you're going to have to buy plane tickets. It's going to be more expensive. You have high priced reps. Do you really want to spend all that money on a field rep to cover North Dakota? So you find a different way to cover it. Okay, now you've got to find someone to handle that. Uh, Other times there's M&A. M&A is, at least during the past year, that's been one of the leading causes for these open territories. We had a company late last year that got acquired. They had a bunch of people leave. They didn't want to be part of the new company. Okay, now we have open territories, or we have M&A. You have dual account coverage. Okay, we're turning one role into a specialist. Now we have to find someone to cover the old accounts. You have a bunch of different reasons that M&A can cause the need for babysitting. Um, New product launches. Uh, Not every rep is going to be up to speed on products, so you'll have gaps in your coverage. There can be any number of things causing the need for an open territory or for babysitting.
Got it. All right. So, now that we heard the causes,
Mhm.
what do we do now?
Well, you gotta stuff someone in there and cover those accounts. Uh, I generally find that there are two um, camps that babysitting. I'm gonna continue using the term babysitting. There are two camps that staffing an open territory and babysitting would fall into. You have long-term and shorter-term maintenance. Uh, so babysitting has the connotation that it's short, it's temporary, right? So if it's going to be transitory and it's going to be really long-term, like I dealt with the company that sold the high pressure gaskets, O-rings for deep sea wells and for the space shuttle, massive amount of engineering. It's not like you can hire someone within a month. It's going to take a long time to staff them that role and get the training up to speed and everything. So you can have really long-term expectation for covering open territories. Conversely, you could have shorter term ones, uh, where where people are fungible. And I ran the sales ops teams for Charter Communications, and you could just pick up someone who you can train fairly quickly to sell cable, sell internet, sell whatever it is, and send them out into the field. There was really short-term training, and it I wouldn't call it a high skill sales role. So depending on those two, you're going to have different techniques on how you do the babysitting. So let me handle the long-term one first. If you have an open territory and you have someone who is going to be in there for, or someone who is going to be managing the accounts there for a very long time, it's going to require a different set of steps to get them paid, to handle the quota, to introduce them to the accounts. It's it's long term, so it's not like you could just let's say give them responsibility and just say, if you sell there, we'll just give you compensation. We're not going to increase your quota. Just sell to them. Yeah, what's going to happen is that you're going to lose a lot of smaller accounts. They're only going to focus on the big ones. And over the long term, that's probably not a good strategy for the company. So if it's long-term maintenance, you're going to have to give them full quota. They're going to inherit the full quota. You're going to be on a either have a rider on their incentive compensation plan, or their pay level should be reevaluated so that it's increased for the duration of the babysitting. For temporary, you have a couple of different paths you can go down. Um, if when I say temporary, you're talking about, 6 months. Sometimes you could stretch it to a year, but usually, 6 months. Um, so you have there can be significant onboarding time, but it's not it's not something that's insurmountable. You could staff someone in there for under 6 months and then expect a fully trained person to come in there. The rep can be given separate compensation measures as a plan addendum. They can get partial quota inheritance. They can get a bonus on their compensation plan equal to the full amount of incentive attached to the territory. It's a temporary thing, but you have to give them performance expectations so that you don't lose the accounts in the territory, even though it's temporary. Uh, if you go down another path where you're saying, you know what, it's really short term, it's only 1 quarter. Um, we don't want to give them any change in their quota. We don't want to change their compensation plan. We don't want to do any of those things. We just want someone to come in and babysit. Just do it quickly for a quarter, jump in, jump out. All right, you know what? That's where spiffs come in. Those short-term bonuses are a separate measure attached to the compensation plan. You have to link it to quota achievement, of course. Sorry, you have to link it to some sort of achievement level, but it might be milestones. It might be, it's not going to affect their core compensation plan. It's just a short-term addendum to the plan. They don't get a full quota increase. They just get let's say a spiff with some performance attached to that. It's incremental, in other words.
Trying to digest everything that you just covered there. What's kind of shift and move to coverage methodologies?
You mean how you would actually do the act of babysitting, how you would choose someone to do it?
Yep.
Okay. So there are a lot of different methods. Each one of them probably has their own situation. Let me give you one I worked with middle of last year. This one cracked me up. They had a call center, and they had people who were you didn't require travel. It didn't require to be face to face with someone. And this is really more common now than it used to be because of COVID and Zoom. Or sorry, due to video conferencing. Can't name specific companies, so I guess you'll edit that up. Because of video conferencing. So you can do what's called the round robin, where you give people based off of the opportunity that comes in. or split up all of the accounts as equally as you can. Um, it it's on the surface the most fair way to cut up an account for temporary servicing, right? So let's say the territory has 10 accounts, you have 10 reps, each rep gets a an account to cover at its simplest cost. And sorry, at its simplest way to describe it. Obviously, you're going to have territories with hundreds of accounts and you're going to split them up. Uh, that's really good. It's really fair when the selling skills are equal, when everyone has equal capacity. Call center is a great example. Everyone gets you go around the horn whenever the next opportunity comes in, the next person in line gets it. The round robin really does work when you have equal skills and equal capacity. And of course, you can guess when this breaks down is when each opportunity doesn't have equal potential, or there there isn't an equal earnings opportunity with each account as it comes in. So round robin has its place, but usually it breaks down pretty quickly. Uh, Another one is I see this with really complicated products and really complicated high-priced medical equipment, the preferred rep. And I worked with a medical device company. They sold imaging equipment, which I know nothing about. But apparently, there's different types of imaging. This one you would have to sit in there and it would spin around you. It's um, one of those, but really complicated to understand. They had different skill levels with the reps. So what they did was they had an empty territory in Arizona, New Mexico, and Southern California, and they took a rep from the New York area and assigned it to that rep um, on a semi-temporary basis. It was actually a little over a year. And the rep once a week would be in New York, and the following week would be in the Southwest. They fly back and forth. They did that because this rep they judged to have a little bit of capacity, but also because the selling skills were 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 much higher. Um, However, this type of method, as you can probably guess, is going to have uh, a real different level of the accounts are going to be disproportionately assigned.
Mm-hmm.
Assuming that when the accounts were allocated in the first place, you try to balance things. When you have an empty territory, well, someone's going to have more. So yeah, there it is. Uh, the uh, the company needed to do this because they required a high level of specialization. So you're going to have reps who are going to have a disproportionate amount of earnings on a short-term basis. Short-term, meaning a year or more. Um, Another one is the guy next door, the lady next door, uh, the the single rep coverage. Okay, so this one seems most logical. You have a rep who is in Florida and leaves. The rep in Georgia, fairly close. Let them cover Florida for a short period of time. Um, that works, um, but it's obviously not optimal. You could have a rep that is not good covering a territory. It reeks of favoritism oftentimes. It looks like someone landed on a gold mine. It's a gift to them that they are inheriting an account, inheriting a territory for a short term. So, hey, it just happens that I live next door to that territory. Great. Um, Obviously, that's going to break down if there's a heavy reliance on um, sorry, it's going to break down if there's a skill gap. Let's say the person in Georgia just is a new rep. Okay, how are you going to explain that away? You're going to lose accounts. If the person in Georgia was really um, pegged out and didn't have any capacity, all right, you're just putting more burden on them. Uh, this tends to work well if, let's say, the person in Georgia um, had a lot of clients that cross the state line. It, picture they're selling to doctors' offices, and someone has an office in the Panhandle and right over the border in Georgia or Mississippi. You see that in the New York area a lot, but it works really well if you have a heavy reliance on cross-border relationships. Uh, the most obvious one, and one that is fraught with controversy. I read papers about this one all the time. The rep that has the available capacity. You know what? You have free time on your hands. Why don't you go over and cover this empty territory for us? And then you're going to have someone in the company just take 2 seconds to think about this and say, hey, wait, why do they have all this capacity?
Mm-hmm.
Why do they have all this time on their hands?
Right. What's going on here?
Right. Were they not selling where they were? Or then you'll have someone step up and say, no, 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 they just got a bum territory. Okay. So they're a good rep in a bad territory? Well, that hardly seems like we did that right. Should we talk to the people assigning territories? What's going on there? So this one always starts an argument. Hand it to this rep. They've got all this free time on their hands. All right, there could be a case made that you had a really good rep and they just had a case of bad luck. I ran the sales ops team for a lab, and we put a great rep in Carolina, and the main lab in North and South Carolina, the main hospital chain, uh, canceled on us because they had a government thing going on there where they had to be audited, and all of these things happened that basically forced them, through no fault of the great rep we had there. Okay, I could see giving that rep an empty territory because they're a good rep, they had time on their hands. But that's a moonshot. That's not going to happen all the time. That most of the time, your good reps are going to be in really good territories. They're going to be working them very hard. If you have an open territory and you have someone with time on their hands, that's probably not the person you want to assign there in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, a really interesting one. I I see this all the time, uh, but this one works surprisingly well. Is the manager oversight option. This one is when you have a an empty territory, and you basically say, you know what, manager, you used to be a really good rep, and because you were a good rep, we promoted you. But you have an empty territory, and honestly, go and get it. Uh, my best practice cap being put on, I would normally say, well, then how are they going to be a coach if they're spending so much time maintaining the territory? Well, actually, it seems to work out for some reason. I can't explain it. But when you have a player coach and they're put into a territory that's empty, the other territories, they don't seem to suffer that much. If anyone wanted to email me as to a good reason why that's happening, I'm more than open to hearing it because it does seem to work. Um, but as I said, the best practice hat being put on, you don't want your managers selling. Generally, you want them to be focused on coaching and co-working with the reps to close big sales and whatnot. Um, an interesting option for coverage methodology that is a way to do the administration, but not really covering uh, the the um, the reps. It's over assignment, and this one is it's each rep is given a slightly larger territory, and in my example of, or let me think of a new one. I don't like Florida doesn't only borders a few like small section of states. Let's say that, all right, Pennsylvania has an open rep. Okay, I picked Pennsylvania because I can actually name the states that surround Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania becomes open. You give the New Jersey rep the Philadelphia area. You give the Ohio rep the Pittsburgh area, and you keep carving it up and expanding the reps around them. That one tends to not work out, though. It seems intuitive. You just give everyone else a little bit more and slightly larger territory. But when you finally staff someone in Pennsylvania, no one, and I mean no one, is going to give up their larger territory. It always happens that the person from Jersey or the person from Ohio or any of the other states that are inheriting, they're going to say, "Hey, I've been doing a good job. You don't want to risk the sales here. You know what?" As a manager or as a VP of sales or someone, you're going to say, "I guess we didn't need that Pennsylvania rep after all. Why not just give everyone a raise and make everyone happy?" It's such an easy out that
Yeah.
once you carve up a territory and give it to other people, you never give it back.
Mhm. Out of these coverage, methodologies you went through, what is the most
Mhm.
common that you've seen?
Um, can I name two of the most common?
Sure.
Okay. I usually see the manager oversight or the overassignment.
Yeah.
And it's a layup. Um, you have someone who's a manager who got there by being a great rep. Hey, we have a need. We have an open territory. We have to put someone in there tomorrow. Give it to the manager. The over assignment where you carve it up, where the manager oversight, are the ones that are the least thought. They're just simple gimmies. You could do it tomorrow. So if you have someone who leaves, or if you have someone who's not performing, if you have someone for some reason, you have a fire drill, this is the quickest way to put it out usually. I'm not saying it's the best, but it's just quick. Now, you might be a company where you have special needs, where you really need a heavy hitter to come in and tackle a special account. Yeah, but how often is that happening?
True. Well, that's all our time for today. Jason, as always, thanks for your wisdom and expertise, and thanks everyone for listening in. To hear more sales best practices, tips, trends, and solutions, check out more episodes of the Payday Playbook Podcast at www.xactlycorp.com.